Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's On Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about all of this week's Disney Plus news, which includes the global brand of FX. We'll be talking about some ABC specials coming to Disney Plus. We've also got some other discussions as well, and we'll be sharing our thoughts on this week's episode of Hawkeye. But before we go any further, if you haven't already done so, make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. You can find all the news and stuff over there. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, etc. You can also hit that little subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. You can also subscribe on the audio platforms like Spotify and iTunes. And also, as well, if you head over to What's on Disney Plus right now, and you're on the main webpage, you'll see here you've got the Vote in our Best of 2021 awards. If you could go and do that and take part in our vote. So you guys are all voting on this. We've got, I think, coming up to over 1,000 votes right now. So the more people that vote, the better. It's just great to have your response, and we'll be going through that in the episode, well, on our New Year's episode. That'll be when we go through all the results. If you haven't already done so, you can also support us on Patreon or YouTube channel members, which helps pay the bills, helps cover the hosting of bits and pieces, covers all the lights and stuff. So big thank you to Sarah for being an executive producer. We've also got Andrew, Elliot, Jacob, Caleb, Red Marsman, Aero G, Andrew, Cody, Darren, and Lauren. Thank you very much for your support while over on the YouTube. Thank you very much to Ricky. We've also got Baba Trolling, Dave, Diona, CBBC, Reborn, Adam, Manwad. Sorry if I mispronounced that one. Ben, Raphael, J Blue, my VCR still works. Bina, Joshua, Dawn, Martin, Jeremy, and Sarah. Again, a huge thanks for all of your support. And let's jump into it then. Okay, so there's been a lot of little bits of news this week. First off, let's start off with the big one. Yesterday it was confirmed that Eternals is going to be coming to Disney Plus around the world on January the 12th. This date has been rumbling around for a little bit, but because of where the source was, it was a Belgian website, so it was a little bit like, well, it could be different, so I didn't quite run it. But yeah, it's now been confirmed. I think it's about 68 days from release. It's not quite the 45 days, but pretty good. I think it's actually probably good for January to kind of boost up January a little bit with some more content, because especially this month, there's, we've got Encanto coming in on Christmas Eve, and we've also got Ron's Gone Wrong coming this coming Wednesday, and internationally as well, we've been getting like The Last Duel. We've had a couple of other things as well, like in Australia, they're getting like Antlers, and they're getting Antlers next week, so they're getting a few other bits and pieces. So there's lots of stuff dropping in. So yeah, so did you watch Eternals, didn't you? So we're probably going to be watching it again when it drops on the Disney Plus.
Yeah, I don't think we ever talked about it because we either had an off week or so we've never discussed Eternals. The one thing
we'll do that one. Yeah,
is that we were guessing it would come out probably around Christmas because that was the 45-day window.
Yeah,
but obviously with Encanto, sorry, my cat wants to play with the camera.
That's okay.
We have dogs.
Yeah, we're good. No, yeah, we're good because everyone is literally just as we say record. My dogs started to bark. So yeah, we're having some pet issues today.
We're having a zoo today, but
yes. So yeah, we'll do a full breakdown, I think, of Eternals once it comes out on Disney Plus, since we haven't already done so. It makes sense to do it there.
It'll be good to have it at the beginning of January, as you said. Yeah, I was about to jump into like a review of it, but no, we'll talk about it when it comes out. It'll be a good thing to watch. It'll help, hopefully, with maybe a little bit of doldrums in January that we've traditionally seen. Obviously, we will be watching things like Boba Fett as well, but the last couple of years, January has typically been the I know we gave you everything for Christmas, kind of chill for a bit.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well because I was looking at the release schedule for like what's coming up, and it's a little bit like Disney have really gone hard on this final 3 months of the year. I mean, actually, to be honest, since I'd probably say since like September, we've had Free Guy, we've had Shang-Chi, we had then we ended up with Eternals. We've just had West Side Story. We got Spider-Man coming up this coming week. We've got was it The Kingsman coming out? We've also had Ron's Gone Wrong, The Last Duel, The French Dispatch, The Night House, with a whole host of movie. And then when we go into, once we go past 2 weeks' time for the Kingsman, we're literally talking, there's not another release until March for Turning Red. There might be a Searchlight maybe in the middle there. And then after that, it's May for Doctor Strange. They're like really heavily loaded up this month. So in some ways, I'm like, it makes sense maybe for them to push it back, and then I could see like West Side Story maybe dropping in end of February, beginning of March, and then so I definitely feel like we've got some stuff coming in, but they're heavily loaded up. So I think in some ways it makes sense for them to sort of stretch these out a little bit more, because the 45-day, and then people kind of get this a little bit misconstrued of like, they think like 45-day means on day 45 or day 46 it instantly comes to Disney Plus. It's like, no, it just means that they're free to do what they want after that date. They're not sticking to it bang on. I think they're trying to work out, because Encanto's got a 30-day release, so that one's maybe special for Christmas. They might see how that goes. The fact that they've pretty much, they don't mention Encanto coming to Disney Plus, like they don't like talking about it very much publicly. I mean, they even missed off the video this like last week for the what's coming in this summer. I didn't we don't want anyone to know about it. Keep going to the cinema, keep going to the so it's definitely a bit odd.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that the 45-day window and the occasional special 30-day was kind of more of a result of COVID. People being at home, people demanding content, and now people are starting to be able to get out a little bit more and go to the theater, which is of course what Disney wants, because they make a lot more money at the theater than they do off of streaming, at least at the moment, which is not an insignificant amount to begin with. So if they're going to probably keep pushing that window back a little bit, not too far. We're not going to go back to the olden days of like 180 days or a year or anything like that.
6 to 8 months.
But 45 was always, like you were talking about, just maybe a little bit too short for their liking, where you announce it's in theaters now and then kind of under your breath, coming to Disney Plus 45 days from now, I'm sure that they're very worried about, it's coming to Disney Plus in a month and a half. I'll just wait for that.
Well, I mean, they never used to announce the home video releases till a couple of months. They didn't really used to announce them straight away. Now, it's interesting as well, because there was actually this past week, Comcast announced that they're going to be doing a 45-day theatrical window release for their titles going to Peacock. It won't be all of their titles. Some of them are going to have a little bit shorter. Some of them are going to be a bit longer. I think like the one that Christopher Nolan's, I mean, he hates streaming, so it might come in like 2029 or something by the time it arrives on there. So they've announced a 45-day window as a standard, with some variation. Viacom have done the same thing with their Paramount Plus. However, they might have slightly shorter, slightly longer on some family films and stuff. HBO Max has done the same. They're going with a 45-day window for 2022. They're not doing what they've done this past year, where it's day and date. I'm going to be honest, I think Disney are going to end up kind of following very similar to this. They might be like, right, everything's got a 45-day or a 30-day window, and then we do what we want after that. The fact that every studio has done this, I think this is the new standard. You can't have, I mean, if you've got Universal, Paramount, Warner, and Disney all doing 45, I think we're at that point now where that's kind of like the standard.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, all these companies probably came to this conclusion independently. There might have been a little bit of, talk between teams. What's working for you? Oh, this is working for us. But there's no like consortium going, all right, what's the date that we're going to set this? And they all just kind of individually said 45. So that's what the numbers must bear out, because this is all the statistics and.
Well, they've all been testing, haven't they?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, they've all been testing over the last year. I don't think the HBO Max system, and while it might be better it was better for HBO Max subscribers, generally their box office reflected that. I think, and also they can see with the numbers of just them drop. But like I said, they don't like announcing stuff a little bit too far in advance of about Disney Plus, because they want you to go to the cinema, and it's the same way they used to do it with home video. But like I said, we've seen what's happening in Australia now with the way that they're doing their branding for their home video releases now includes Disney Plus in like the DVD, digital, and Disney Plus is now like essentially that's their point then, which I think is probably on right of just treating it the same way as home video. They're not worried about people renting and all the rest of it now, because it's the same. I mean, but yeah, I think the 45 days is definitely going to be the standard. Probably good. Disney haven't announced anything, but I can't see them doing 30 days.
Yeah. So 2 quick thoughts on that. HBO Max probably also got a lot of flack from creators, because when it was first announced, like all of the directors and producers and writers were like, no, what are you doing to us? I know that the creator of the Dune movie, the most recent one, was very vocal about, no, this is a theater movie. You need to see this in the theater. You are going to destroy this movie. Having seen it, I can kind of get it. I think you would get a better experience out of the theater with that one, but not like tears level. And then the second thought, which has now completely evaporated from my head.
Well, a lot of it as well was that they're trying to get the money in for these movies. They're not bringing in as much as they are, but the long life. Most movies were losing money once they got past like 3-4 weeks anyway. So it's just about, and also I think it's gonna really make a massive difference, especially I would say for the international version of Disney Plus. We've already seen it the last couple of months, where you're starting to see multiple movies dropping monthly and big movies. Like I said, the ones I've already mentioned. We've had The Last Duel last week. We've got Run's Gone Wrong coming up. I suspect, we're going to have French Dispatch. We're going to have Antlers thrown in that as well. And then we'll have the Kingsman and West Side. And suddenly then you're talking like maybe twice a month you're getting a big... And I put the Searchlight pictures into that as well. I'd even put like some of the National Geographic documentaries, like The First Wave, Becoming Cousteau, Rescue. The Rescue was an amazing documentary. The First Wave I watched this week. These are all, these are cinema quality movies. These are, National Geographic are going for some Oscars this year. If anyone wants to go up against them for documentary, they're going to be hard to beat because the amount of stuff that they've released. But these are all adding up to a massive amount of big titles.
Yeah. Did the BBC release any big, like a David Attenborough documentary?
I think because everything's kind of, everything kind of got stung and stopped, and there's not a lot of...
Because it's normally the BBC and normally with David Attenborough that really are the only true contenders to National Geographic when National Geographic is on their game.
They're on their game.
They've dropped some less quality stuff, but we'll talk a little about some of those later as well. I do remember what I was going to say. I'm not sure what it looks like in your area, but like the DVD aisle in the big box stores has been shrinking. It's no longer even an aisle. It's normally like 2 fixtures in like an 18 lot aisle. It's tiny.
Yeah, they're tiny. There's hardly anything in there. There's normally a stack full of like Disney DVDs. We were laughing yesterday. Me and my wife, we went up to the city to do a last bit of Christmas shopping the other day, and we went for lunch. We sat there eating, and I'm just saying to her, I said, "This used to be the record store when I was at college. It's like now it's a restaurant." And if you actually wanted, there's literally like one store in the city now to go and buy. And we were only talking last night while watching a hoarding show, going, right, and she goes, do you really need all those Disney and Marvel Blu-rays that are underneath the cupboard that we've not used? And I'm like, oh no. It's just a bit like, no, they've been there since we moved in, and they were in storage for 2 years, and so it's like, I can watch Star Wars anytime I want, and all the Marvel. It is. I think physical. People are just not people aren't doing it the same anymore.
I picked up a couple on I want to say Black Friday. It was actually the weekend after Black Friday. Yeah. But a couple. I have basically the complete set of MCU movie 4K. So none of the shows, but just the movies. Been picking up the 4Ks when they dropped to like $10 on special weekends. And a couple of the Star Wars ones, a few other random movies. But I'm only buying it if I know I'm going to watch it many, many times. You really get the use out of it. Otherwise, I'm waiting for streaming. Part of this grew out of like when streaming was really starting to catch on. So Netflix had already launched, but other services were starting to come in. My internet connection was not reliable enough to be like, okay, I'll watch the movie. And this is 1080, not even 4K. So I was like, I still prefer having the physical media here. So I know that if my internet is acting up, I can just pop the disc in and watch what I want to watch. But yeah, right now it's literally like only the movies that I'm going to watch many times over the next couple of years. And otherwise, if I'm going to watch it once or twice, streaming. It's not worth having the clutter in my apartment for that.
I mean, it's like James Bond and the new Venom movie. I'm just waiting for the price to drop on the rental. I'm not paying $16. I'm not in that zone. But yeah, it's going to be one of those things. So I think we're going to see more of this coming in. There's also another little announcement from Paramount Plus this past week, which I thought was interesting. They've announced that they're going to be doing 18 live channels. They're going to be running for 24 hours a day. They're going to include a curated list of popular shows and movies from across its brands, including MTV, Nickelodeon, etc. And they've previously done this on Pluto TV, and they found a lot of success with it. So what they're going to have is they're going to have like 18 live channels. So one of them's like Kids and Family, one's on Star Trek, one's on Preschool, one's on Survivor, and they're going to be adding more at later dates. And I'd imagine they might do like a South Park one when something comes up. And a lot of people have been asking for this about doing live streams of like, I think there's still a chunk of people that just like to have content like shown to them rather than them having to pick, almost like and this idea of just having just a constant stream, because these are not rebroadcasts of the channels on cable. These are like brand new channels that just are basically just a shuffle list of TV shows. I mean, they're not going to take a lot to curate because they could probably just add them all in. They've not got presenters going in between them like on TV or anything like that. No plans for ads at the minute, but they possibly could do because Paramount Plus has a 2-tiered service for ads. But a lot of people seem to be quite like, because when I put this like, would you like to see this on Disney Plus? Because I know a lot of people, especially kids or people that have got like, they like putting on movies and they like having a little bit more variety for their kids and just watching the same episode of the same movie over and again.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things where sometimes having, just random content, it's not truly random, you can see the schedule, but
yeah,
just having this rotating content is something that really helps out. And I don't think it's like people really lining up to be like, at 8:00 tonight, you're going to get the next blockbuster movie, or it's the old back in the day when it's like, it's the home release for The Lion King. It's the first time it's on the Disney Channel. Before that, you could only watch it on the VHS. It's not quite like that. This is more of just, I want something on. I don't really care what's on, or my kid doesn't care what's on. Just put something, and it's a set schedule. Like we know we can turn Disney Plus on at 6 p.m. or when the kid gets home at 4 or 5 p.m. and there will be DuckTales on there. That's what's going to air. People love that consistency. Obviously, a couple weeks ago, we mentioned it with the Get Back special where you were getting emails from people like, what time does it air? What time do I have to turn on? People still have that mindset, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's another benefit to this as well. In the traditional cable model, the one that we've used for decades, you get a lot of, we call them in the States, all access channels. They're really like local stations, very low footprint, normally like only get to a couple thousand houses. But these serve a very important purpose of letting a lot of young up and coming filmmakers a chance to get their first kind of professional experience. And when we go to pure streaming, you lose that because nobody's going to pay you for 5 college kids to be making a stupid little sitcom that's only going to air at 2:00 in the morning on channel like 980. It's not going to show up on Disney. So as much as we love praising, the Spark shorts and the training stuff like that, you need these. And this kind of pseudo live television could be an opportunity to keep those shows going.
Yeah, hopefully Disney are like looking into options for this. I mean, Disney Life, which was here before Disney Plus, had live streaming of the main Disney channel, so they've done that in the past. Obviously, Hulu do it, but they charge you for that. I mean, I know I have satellite television. Sometimes you just flick through the channels because you got like, I got 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and you're just like flicking through the channels or something that will just catch your eye. I actually do it quite a bit with with Apple Music. With just like listening to like almost like radio stations, where they it's basically like radio, but it's like, well, I could put on a playlist, but and I'll use like their top 5, their top. Quite often I just listen to like Hot 50 country music, so I'll get the top 50 chart, and because it's constantly changing, so it's not me constantly going in. It's a curated list that just keeps changing every single day, so therefore I'm getting new music, new stuff comes in, and stuff that's been around a while might slip out as things are more popular. And it's a curated list, and I find I use that a lot with music, of using these curated lists like that, just because it just allows just a bit of freedom. So hopefully, it might be something. I mean, if they never added it, it's not a problem. But I think it's not a bad little feature.
It would be interesting because, like, the rare time when I'm listening to streaming music rather than my own MP3s, I use Spotify, and you can go into it very similar to what you're talking about. I assume Apple can do this too.
Yeah.
Where you go, okay, I've been listening to, this Taylor Swift song a lot.
Yeah.
Make me a playlist of music that is like this song. And then they use their algorithms and they go, okay, people who've listened to this have also been listening to this, and this. And you can be introduced to all sorts of new music. Now, does that apply to a Disney Plus, Paramount Plus platform? No, but that might actually be really interesting. Be like, hey, I really loved Big Hero 6, Season 2, Episode 5. I just picking random numbers here. Show me stuff like that. And it does its algorithm. It's like, well, people who loved that episode love these as well. It doesn't work quite as well with content that's supposed to be viewed in order, but it'd be a fun little thought experiment. I don't think they'd ever actually do that, but it'd be interesting to see.
And Netflix, they have a little like play something buttons that just like randomly pick something to watch. I think I mean, you don't end up watching Coco Melon. It's just, I think it's just the idea really, and then you go straight to Squid Game. I think it's just that thing of some people just like having content put in front of them. So that's pretty cool.
No, it's definitely the I stayed home from work or school sick at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm on the couch and I don't want to think about this, so we're gonna put The Price is Right and Family Feud on for the next 6 hours. And just, I mean,
the amount of times I'll flick through the TV and like, and my wife's been going on me of like flicking through, and then like Back to the Future or Transformers movies are on, and I'll just sit there and she goes, "You've seen these before like 1,000 times." And I'll sit there for 20 minutes, and then, oh yeah, we're going to do this. And then you suddenly, you're waiting for a TV show to start at 6 o'clock, and you sit there watching, just Transformers for 20 minutes in the middle of it, not even. And yeah, it's just, I think it's just, a different way of watching, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Moving on from there, a little bit of an interesting one this week. So, the Avengers Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. Now, this one was announced back at last year's Investors Day, and we got the trailer at Disney Plus Day last month, and it's coming to Disney Plus on Friday the 28th of January. Now, earlier this week, they actually even put out a poster with a date on it, and if you go into Disney Plus in the US, you will see, and in Latin America and Canada, it will still say January the 28th. However, if you go into Disney Plus in Australia and Europe, we're getting the 25th of March. Now, this is built into Disney Plus. So there was a bit along the lines of, well, if this is an error, it's on them. It's not, it's like they put this out. I put the story out there. It's been nearly a week. It's still there. It's every day I've been checking to see if they've updated it, because even the composer tweeted at me saying, "No, it's false." Like, yeah, but it's in the app. Mm-hmm. I'm not making this up. It's in the app, and it's like, well, it's still there. I've reached out for clarification. Haven't heard anything back. Which I'm wondering if this movie's like delayed for some of us. I don't know if it's because of subtitles or things like that, which I find really annoying if that is the case for us, because I mean, we can understand American quite well. I mean, I know I have to have a translator for you, because of this massive difference in our language. I mean, it's like, okay, I understand it maybe not being available in France if they've not got the French dubbing or the French subtitles, but English, it's like, why? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the problem is a lot of the time those subtitles aren't free for you and me. They're for people who are hard of hearing or who need the extra processing. So yeah, it's definitely annoying.
Yeah, but subtitles would be the same. I mean, other than if it's just a case of U's and Z's, that seems a bit excessive.
Yeah, but the problem is the subtitles aren't there for us. They're for people, English is a second language and need that extra time, or people who can't hear. And obviously, if you can't hear and you're watching a movie and they don't have the subtitles, you don't have any idea what's going on.
Well, they're going to have English subtitles for America. So that's
right, closed caption, etc.
Yeah, they're going to have. I understand if there is a problem, why they haven't got it in Norway, for example, because they couldn't get. And that happens a lot with Disney Plus. It actually happens a lot more than people realize with the originals, where things get delayed. But more so on the smaller titles, things like Insider or the documentary kind of things. But on this, this is a big movie. I don't know. I'm hoping this is wrong and they fix it and they work it out. But I don't, and I specifically don't like the idea of them delaying it for Europe and Australia by 2 months if there's no difference. I mean, unless there's got a lot of acting differences, I don't know. It just the fact that this is still here in Disney Plus, 4 or 5 days after I made it aware to people was, and we've reached, it's like, that's not good sign.
Yeah,
it's not a good sign.
It is also worth keeping in mind, though, when you look at something like this, you're like, well, this is a super easy thing to fix. Just go in and update the whatever file you're storing the date in, a database or a JSON file or whatever it's in. A lot of people don't realize that while it is super easy, the people who handle these things probably have much more higher priority items that they need to attack first. And you're like, oh, this will take 5 seconds, but that's 5 seconds they're taking away from other. And and working with people like this for a different company, like, getting people to do the trivial stuff is actually sometimes harder than the big stuff, especially when it is only a 5 second to fix. Like, they will stubbornly dig their heels in and be like, I'm not doing this. It's too easy. Which really sounds weird if you're not in that industry. Like, why not just? But
it's a very tricky one. And like I said, it's for me, it's more about the fact that of how long it's been up in the app. Is like, the longer it's up in there, it's like, okay, that's a bit of. So hopefully this gets fixed and we do get it at the same time. But yeah, it is disappointing to see if that is going to be the case for this movie.
I hope it's just a typo or a misentry, or somebody was kind of hedging their bet because they weren't sure, and it will get updated properly and everybody gets it at roughly the same time. We definitely don't want to have to harp on why is it available in this region and not available in this region again. We've been talking about it since the beginning of Disney Plus, and they've been getting much, much better about how before Disney Plus, when we were doing Disney Kingdom, we'd be like, well, this week I will be talking about this movie, but Roger doesn't get to see it till next week. And then you would get the Marvel movie a week before.
I mean, this is it. I mean, I'm going to be watching Spider-Man on Wednesday. Because it comes out Wednesday here. I think it's Thursday for you guys out there.
The midnight release is on Wednesday. So.
Yeah, I mean, I got like 9 a.m. on Wednesday, so I'm pretty much good to go. But then also, like, Nightmare Alley, we ain't getting it till the 22nd of January. We're getting a whole month later, and we got Venom 2 weeks later. It swings and roundabouts. You literally get one, and you get the other. It's very strange how this all works, but yeah, it's just disappointing with this.
I'll just jump in and add really fast. I actually don't have tickets for No Way Home because my theater is completely sold out.
Well, actually, you know what?
Which is great for the theater, but I'm like, okay.
You know what?
I have to see it after.
I had a look yesterday to see at my theater, and the time I'm going is like there's only 8 or 9 seats sold because it's on literally like every half an hour. Now, that said, I live in a coastal town in the middle of winter in the UK. There's not a lot of tourists around, so it's very quiet. But yeah, why I was trying to rush to get my ticket and this website was down, and like I looked yesterday going, why did I bother? Like the whole cinemas, there's like 200 seats left, which is actually going to be really good because unfortunately, like all the restrictions with face masks and stuff have all come back into place as of yesterday here in the UK. So I'm actually, to be honest, I'm glad that it's not going to be a full house. That means I'm going to be able to enjoy it a little bit more. With just a lot less people making noise, and I mean that's the trouble we go to cinema. People in there.
I mean, I've complained about it plenty, and I'm sure people think, oh, it's just because this is a Disney Plus podcast. You're trying to dump on theater. I'm like, no, I genuinely am not enjoying the experience at this point. There are seats available in mine, but they're normally the ones that are like, or when I first saw the original X-Men movie, so back in 2000, I watched the X-Men, and the only seats left in the house were the front 2 corner.
Oh, we had that for Avengers. Like
I spent half the movie going, Patrick Stewart's nose is huge, because it was all distorted from my angle.
And then when you got the 3D glasses on, you're like, this is horrible. Why did I bother? But nevertheless, right, that's enough dumping.
Anyway, point being, I may not be able to see it the week it comes out, but
yes,
we'll see what happens.
Right. Okay. Let's shift now. There was an announcement this past week, which was a bit of a. This came out kind of nowhere, and a kind of people are going, "But this is something of nothing," and then other people are going, "This is massive." So Disney announced that they are turning FX is now going to be a global brand, for both linear and streaming on both in the US on Hulu, Star Plus, and Disney Plus in all other territories. FX on Hulu is just going to be rebranded FX, and it's going to be the remaining, and it'll be the next day home for all of the linear stuff off the US. But they're pretty much, I mean, even, you know, they said they want to turn this brand evolving to connect with international audiences on Disney Plus and Star Plus. And the fact that I think they're getting about 30 new originals in 2022, 25 of them scripted, 5 of them unscripted. I think they've kind of got to that point now of going, because FX, I mean, I don't think some people quite realize, but FX actually isn't really much of a brand outside of the US. You know, we didn't have the FX channel. It was Fox. It wasn't FX. So we had all those shows, but they were all on different networks, all on different channels. And so if they didn't really push the fact that it was out, you weren't really paying a lot of attention. I mean, you know, when something like Glass House comes up in front of, you know, those little things at the beginning, all the production companies, you know, most people don't pay any attention to them. So that's all it was. So FX hasn't really been a brand, but they've now decided to turn FX into its own brand. It's going to be a global brand. They're going to, I mean, you start seeing it on Disney Plus over here. You know, they're really now starting to, on all the bits and pieces that they're doing, they are now putting on the fact that it does actually say FX on it. Because for a while, the logos weren't on it, but they're really going to push it. Now, this has got me thinking about whether or not this is getting ready for maybe a shift in how they're presenting Disney Plus internationally with this star button, whether or not they start adding in like Fox or 20th Century at some point. Because in my opinion, Star has become so crowded, you can't find anything because there's probably 700 to 800 things in here. And then you have Star Wars, with not even 40. You know, it's a big thing. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if FX, they start making a little bit more of it. I mean, at the minute, you just have this little FX logo here and there's a little FX logo here. So there's not really a huge amount of branding. But I think in the future, and if they're giving us, like here in the UK, 30 original series next year, they're going to want to make this a bigger thing. And I'm going to FX is a. I mean, I've watched a few things over the years, but I definitely feel like, you know, it's going to become one of the bigger brands of like Disney Plus internationally, and obviously of Hulu as well.
There were a couple of years there, maybe even longer than that actually, where FX was really one of the top premium channels on American television, which was even better because it didn't come with a premium subscription. It wasn't like HBO where you had to go and get it specifically. I think most companies did have it where it was part of an extra package, so it wasn't base and you had to pay a little bit extra, but it came with like 20 other channels.
Yeah.
There was definitely a time when I was always checking to see what was coming up on FX because they had some great shows on there. I'm pretty sure Fargo was on there. I think The Gifted aired on there.
Yeah, that's a good show.
Yeah, I loved both of those shows. No, I was going to say The Walking Dead, but that was on the
that's AMC, I think.
AMC, sorry, not TMC. It's a completely different channel. Yeah, but FX has had that reputation here in the States of generally having more mature content that's better produced, more for adults. Definitely push the boundaries of the difference between cable and premium television. I can see why they want to do to kind of push that out. And as you said, kind of helping to delineate between brands within Star or within Hulu here in the States will help. You brought up a good point with it getting a bit crowded. Obviously, that is a new complaint that we probably hear more frequently, but it's the flip side of going from not nearly enough content to an abundance of content, and it's very obvious that their interface needs to be updated to reflect all this new content and being able to find things. Honestly, I don't think any of the streaming companies have figured this one out yet. Netflix still struggles with it. HBO Max struggles with a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think most like Peacock and Paramount Plus are kind of in the same situation with Disney, where they've got established brands and channels, and they've got an established identity for them. Amazon and Netflix don't really have that. So Netflix, obviously everything's just on Netflix, so therefore they don't have that branding. Whereas Disney have kind of done that, and they've been masters at this. They've been doing it for a while. I mean, it's like here, I'm here on this screen right now on Star. You know, you got an ESPN. You got FX. You then got 20th Century. You then got Kids TV. You've got 20th Century here. You've got you know, the new Onyx in here. Then you've got Touchstone. It's like just a sea of content. The trouble is, if it's not on this home page, it's getting harder and harder to find it because there is so much content on here that it's, and I you know, and then you laugh because then it's like, you know, you do go into, you know, it's like Pixar. I mean, there's only got what, you know, because there's some shorts and, you know, maybe 20 movies. There's just a lot of difference in what they've got there.
Yeah, and I mean it's not a thing against Pixar. Their content is quality. There's a reason they're one of the pillars. It's because people want to watch their movies. They want to watch the shorts. But yeah, when you look at it, like the Pixar library only has 20-something movies in it. It's got some little spin-off bits too. It's got the DVD extra pieces, the shorts and things. But yeah, the level of difference in quantity between Star and Pixar or even Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars, they're adding to it, but it's 11 movies, a handful of shows, and a few specials.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're at the point where I wouldn't be at all surprised if Star got a bit of an upgrade, like in February time when it comes up to the annual thing of going, yeah, we're going to have a 20th Studios or 20th Century area and a Searchlight area and an FX area, and then you can kind of use Star as the catch-all of everything else that doesn't fit into that. I just feel like now we're getting into, and if they want to make, it's just a bit of a random thing about saying FX is a global brand, and what are they going to get? A collection? It doesn't really sound like much of a boost up internationally just to have that. So I think we are going to see a change, but hopefully we're going to have to wait a little bit on that one. And a couple of other quick bits before we head into some of the reviews. So it literally was like revealed yesterday that we've got a brand new series. Now we knew it was coming. We knew this one was coming since last month. But National Geographic's The 80s, which is a 6-part series all about the 80s. So it's something I'm definitely going to be watching because I grew up in the 80s. One of the things which was very interesting was, now I bring up this artwork. The special premiere is the 1st of January, getting the first episode, and I think there's episodes dropping every single day that week on National Geographic. But looky here, all episodes streaming December the 31st. This is only for the US. At the minute, it doesn't apply internationally. But this is a big shift. This is a big shift in now. Let's debut a show on Disney Plus, and then we're going to release it afterwards. You know, it's always been the opposite way around, but now things are changing.
I would consider this an experiment. Obviously, they'll see how it goes. It's also worth noting it's a National Geographic, and they've always kind of used National Geographic as their testing for when they can shift releases around. Technically, I grew up in the 80s. I mean, I was born back in 82. I don't really remember the 80s very much. I consider myself more 90s, but yeah, I'll be watching.
But then everything, I always think like that though. I think you quite often grow up with the stuff from the previous generation. I know when I watch like 70s documentaries, a lot of the toys and the merchandise and the music and the gadgets you kind of had in your house growing up because they all like carried on. But yeah, it's more the. I mean, I'm going to watch this because it looks good because of it's about the 80s. But I just really like the idea of them. They keep changing up with this release schedule. They're not happy with what they're doing. They know that they've got to. It's like, just make the decision, guys. You know what you need to do, but you're just not willing to do
it. It's probably a combination of not being happy, but also what works best. I mean, not all of it is strictly going to be some executive going. It's got to be day and date, or I'm not happy with it being in front of, or I'm not happy with it being behind, and all this. There literally is a lot of experimentation involved in what works. Because while Netflix has been streaming for quite some time, this combination streaming and live television platform is still relatively new, and all the companies are still exploring what works and what doesn't. We will be seeing experimentation in the release schedules for at least the next year.
Speaking of experiments, let's move now.
Which one are we talking about? Because there's several.
So let's move on to the next experiment, which we've found out earlier today. was Disney has announced a whole host of the ABC holiday specials. This past week, and then it released the Christmas Light Fight. I'll try and say that one. The Christmas Light Fight on Wednesday. With really not really much announcement. Then on Friday, they released live in front of a studio audience. Though you never find it because it's buried. It's not even on the thing. And then in the coming weeks ahead, we've got the CMA Country Christmas. That was kind of announced on their Twitter that it was available, but it's not actually coming according to their schedule till the 21st of December. You're getting the Wonderful World of Disney, the magical holiday celebration on Christmas Eve. We kind of knew about that one anyway. The Magic Maker, which came out at Thanksgiving. The very boy band Holiday is coming on Christmas Eve. That's just been released on ABC. And something coming, West Side Story. That's not West Side Story. It's the making of documentary that that 2020 ABC News put out, and that's coming on Christmas Eve. So it's like, this is different. This is a little bit. I mean, they're all like sometimes weeks after they've aired, and they're all available on Hulu right now. But we're seeing a little bit of some content sharing going on with Hulu and ABC, and I can't help but feel like none of this was in the announcements from November. This has all been slid into the release schedule. I think this is a big shift. I think this is a little bit of the wake up that they were getting last month with all the shareholders of kind of people saying, we want some more content on Disney Plus for adults. And what we've said, they need to raid ABC a bit more and get some of the family friendly stuff. I mean, I'm like, that's a great list of stuff, because that's stuff, that's like stuff that adults would watch. And it's not about, it's not an FX branded show. These are just family friendly shows. You can watch them with your grandparents, you can watch them with your kids, you can watch them with anyone. You can watch them as a couple. And it was just like, wow, that's like 8 to 9 different specials. Now, obviously, as well, they're holiday, so they've only got a limited window of opportunity. They've only really got like 4 or 5 weeks of use, and then they're kind of dead. I mean, it's why like Christmas Again and Under Wraps arrive, and all the Halloween and Christmas specials have been arriving much quicker. This to me is like this is a shift. We've never seen them do this with ABC stuff before.
Yeah, I think that's the important part of this. Obviously, it'll be good to have the specials, and you can have them available whenever you want to watch them. So
I would suspect they might go.
I was thinking more along the Christmas time. As you said, these are seasonal. I would not expect them to last long into January. And if they do, they're certainly not going to be on the front page.
No.
I was thinking more like if you're having a family holiday, Christmas Eve, you want to put something on, you put on one of these specials. That's what I meant with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the content sharing with Hulu. We know that Comcast and Disney have been talking about the contract a lot lately, and of course, the news is like, no, we're happy with the way everything is. Let's just push this off until negotiations. But there have been those little talks that, okay, we need our content over here. We being Disney, we need that content moving over to Disney Plus, and Comcast wants that content moving over to Peacock. So there could be some kind of unofficial, under the table kind of, okay, you pull these over here, and then we'll be allowed to take some of these over to our.
Or maybe they're just allowed to, and they've never wanted to. I mean, that might be the other thing.
Well, there's allowed and there's allowed. There's the allowed as in like a contractual sense, and then the allowed in the technically you can do it, but we don't want to annoy our partners kind of thing.
Yeah. But to me, this feels a lot along the lines of some executive. I could just, got this executive meeting in my mind where, we've gone down billions in stock. How do we get more stuff onto Disney Plus without annoying, annoying everyone? Like, quick, have a look. What have we got on ABC coming up? We got all these holiday specials. Get them on there. Just throw some stuff on this, So it's like, is an experiment. Are they going to see what the numbers are? What are the views doing? I think if they want to do a proper experiment, you need to kind of say them. It might be, I'll put them on the homepage. It might be, at least mention it and not putting even on, like the branding here, this one here, available the next day on Hulu. There's no mention here. Oh, it's also coming to Disney because I don't think this is a last minute decision.
This smells of let's get these on there right away. Throw some banners up and get it done. Now, that said, I wouldn't be surprised if the week of Christmas we had a little subheader, one of the rows in Disney Plus that's just like new holiday specials, and all of these are in there, and it's again for you're gathering with the family, you just want to put on the Arendelle Yule log, and then there's these other ones that kind of go alongside it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's important to note, this is currently only for the US. We don't yet know if they'll be available internationally. They might be more likely on in Canada. Again, Europe and Asia and Australia sometimes are a little bit funny on this stuff. I hope they do. But music's always a little bit more funny in terms of licensing and stuff. I'll be honest, for me, I'd quite like listening to the Country Christmas. That would be the one I'd probably go for.
When I saw the CMA, I was like, that one, that's Rogers right there.
Yeah, so I'd quite like to watch that one. But things like this, it just makes sense for them to. And I wonder if they've started looking right. We need to get some start sharing. And now this doesn't necessarily mean they're going to start sharing like Doogie Howser and the Wonder Years and the Family Guy and all the rest. Well, not necessarily Family, but all those kind of shows over from Hulu. But this is a big shift, and I think this is a shift of. And I always said this concept of mature content doesn't necessarily always mean the strain in Deadpool. It can be they have that TV-14 listing in the US. Use that, and why not use some of these and it's like this. It's free content. They made it. It's sat there. It's like this is literally like rotting fruit right now, where it's only got 4 weeks of life. You might as well, try and make some pie out of it and try and use it up before on the 1st of January, all of this stuff is completely obsolete and just going in the bin.
I think the metaphor most of us would go with is, the bananas are going bad. So your mom grabs them all up and throws them into a banana bread and cooks it right there. That was always our thing, because bananas go bad so fast. And we had a lot of banana bread. When I was a kid.
See, I grew up with apple trees in the garden.
Okay, well, what do you? Sorry, not to go too far off. What do you do with them? Do you turn them into a pie? Do you turn them into a?
It was usually applesauce, or I think my dad turned them into pie, but it's mainly just buckets of applesauce.
I like applesauce as a kid. I don't think I like that much applesauce.
Just make loads of it. But yeah, so I think just generally this is going to be a big shift. But as I said, we're seeing some changes. So we're definitely seeing some changes. Right. Okay. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap up the news side, because I realize, we're 50 minutes in and we haven't even started talking about some of the shows and stuff we've been watching. So let's shift gears now. What have you been watching? Because we'll do Hawkeye last. What have you been watching over on like Hulu and Disney Plus?
So other than Hawkeye, the main ones I watched, The Rescue. That was several weeks ago. I'll just say it was fantastic. Roger covered most of it.
Yeah.
A couple episodes. Absolutely worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
I was really afraid that it's like, since it happened so recently, relatively speaking, they're like, whatever. They don't have enough information, but it really did go in depth. So great watch. And then sticking with that theme, I watched the first 2 episodes of Welcome to Earth with Will Smith. Again, you talked about that last week. The scenery in that is gorgeous. I mean, this is National Geographic with their best cameras, filming the best locations, like going to the volcano, swimming with sperm whales, etc. They looked amazing. If I have a complaint, it was that the music was really dramatic. Like, they, especially right at the beginning, like,
you half expecting the aliens to turn out.
The Welcome to Earth is actually just Independence Day, and he's giving the alien a tour rather than punching him in the armored face. And then I felt like some of the transitions were obtrusive, where you see the beautiful volcano and then Will Smith's face going, right up in there, saying something dramatic, and then his guide talking about being blind and what it feels like to feel sound and things like that. Okay, being a little dramatic here. Let's go back to the scenery. That said, still very much worth watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Chris Hemsworth and Limitless when that comes out.
Great series. Really,
I'll always be like, yes, check out.
I know there was, I think I was reading something the other day, I think it was on like Variety or something, about how the National Geographic, I think with the boost from Disney, they've been able to get some bigger stars, and they're really like leaning in on getting big celebrities to kind of do these shows. And I think they're finding, word according to Jeff Goldblum, Chris Hemsworth, and this one with Will Smith, these are all Disney Plus money. they've got a little bit more flex with them, and I think they're enjoying kind of having that. They're great series. I think that's it's a very well made document. And the one where he goes in his scuba is that dive thing underneath, amazing.
What's fascinating to me about that, I remember this from the Men in Black 2 commentary of all things, is that Will Smith hates being underwater. They mention it briefly here as well, but that was a whole thing, because there's a scene where he and Tommy Lee Jones get like submerged in water, and apparently the production team was just having one heck of a time getting Will to do it
because I think he's terrified of water. He can't. I don't think he can swim, and and his confidence in water is just not there.
And I kind of wish they had played that up a little more in this, rather than the dramatic close-ups of the deep, dangerous things about to happen voice. I wish they'd kind of gone, this is a really big deal to me because I hate being underwater and I'm doing it.
I did actually find, I think, with him as well, you could tell that thing of he started with Fresh Prince so young. He didn't have that time exploring as a young adult, and so he kind of he's kind of quite scared of a lot of stuff, but I mean, I like this. I said this last week, of like, for me this series was a little bit more of like a bit of a like, he just went on the bigger version of my trips of just because I've done the stuff with the volcanoes and the shark diving and the kayaks and all the rest of it. So I've done a lot of the stuff he's done, and I could completely relate to how he was feeling. But an incredible show.
Yeah, he just did more extreme versions.
Yes. Anything else you watched this past week on Disney?
Nothing new. I plowed through DuckTales season 3. Anybody who's got nostalgia for that show, for the the 1990s, and Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck, Rescue Rangers, all of those, check out the most recent DuckTales.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm having a bit of a 90s throwback myself. I've somehow managed to binge through like 5 seasons of Seinfeld in the last couple of weeks. I'm going through a bit. I loved that show when it was out, when it was out earlier, and I've always loved that show. I had them all on DVD, so I'm really enjoying it. But as far as Disney Plus goes, watch the new episode of Dope Sick. We had the new episode drop on Wednesday, and we're going to do probably a full breakdown of the whole series once it's all finished after Christmas. I gotta say, this is it's a highlight for me of the week. Of literally, it's like my wife gets home, we've done the dinner, it's sit down, and it's like, first thing, no, we're watching Dipstick. I want to watch it. This is like, we're watching it together. I'm really enjoying this series. The like, just seeing Michael Keaton in like rehab and how he's struggling with it, and then he comes out and he kind of relapses because this the rehabs aren't built for the procedure of dealing with people with opioid abuse, and just how evil the company is, because if you're trying to delete emails before you get them or after you've read them, you're trying to hide something. That means you do it. If you weren't doing something wrong, you wouldn't be trying to hide it. An amazing series, and I really can't stress of how much I'm enjoying that one.
This really is Hulu or Starz version of Chernobyl, which was a fantastic series a number of years ago. I've mentioned it in relation to the series before. It's absolutely terrifying, in ways that you're normally not used to being terrifying. When you think of terror, you're thinking Alien or Nightmare on Elm Street or slasher flicks. This is pure psychological. Like, wow, all the people who could have stopped this just didn't.
Yeah, and speaking of Chernobyl, I also started watching another new series this past week, Hot Zone Anthrax. Now in Australia and New Zealand, you guys got the whole season on Disney Plus. Here in the UK, we've got it on National Geographic, so I've been actually watching it on telly, because it's like, I'm sure it'll be dropping at some point. So Hot Zone season 1 was a Star original, but season 2 they've not done it with over here. So I've watched the first episode again. This is all about just the attacks after 9/11. And I've watched the first episode again. Another really great series from National Geographic. I'm really enjoying this one. Have you checked that one out?
Not yet, but I definitely am interested in seeing this. I lived in or near Washington, D.C. when this happened. And I remember it happening and them being all freaked out, and post offices closing and Congress, closing sessions and stuff. And then it just kind of disappeared. They just stopped talking about it. And I mean, I was in college at the time, and I wasn't very political or cared anything about these kind of things, other than, be careful of your mail. You check your mail before you open it, kind of stuff. I didn't really give much thought to it. So I actually, even though I lived through this in very near vicinity, I know very little about what happened, and it'll be interesting to see. But again, like kind of Chernobyl-esque in that sense of like, I'm kind of worried that I'll watch it and be like, you know what, I'm glad I didn't know about this.
Yes.
And maybe give
there's actually
some
like the opening scene. Yeah, I mean, literally, the opening scene is like almost like Chernobyl because it's taking place in Russia, and it just looks like it. But yeah, an incredible. So I'm looking for. I've only watched the first episode. There's 6 episodes. So I'm going to be watching it over the coming weeks. It's going to be it's a bit of a slow one. I'll probably be watching. It'll probably take me a while to get through that one. Another thing I watched this week was the first Wave. So this was a documentary. It's arrived on Disney Plus internationally it was a Sunday release. This one dropped just after we did the podcast. It's on Hulu in the United States. So this one here, it takes place in a hospital in Queens in New York, all about the first wave of COVID. An incredible documentary, very real. I mean, the nurses and stuff are in tears. I mean, we're dealing, you up close looks at people dealing with long COVID. There's dead bodies in here. And the staff are just in tears, just dealing with it. I'm just angry. There's a little bit in here as well with some of the riots and stuff that was going on around the same time. Hard-hitting documentary, really hard-hitting. Not for everyone, but this was. It's probably a lot. I wish more people would watch it because I think a lot of people need to watch it. But on that note, we're going to move on. So let's now.
I'll just note I am not planning to watch it at this time. It's too raw for me still. I will probably watch it at some point in the future. But yeah, moving on.
Yes. So let's now talk Hawkeye, episode 4. So we're going to be going spoilers, but we're like 5. This is a good thing with them being on Wednesday. We've got a little bit longer for everyone to watch it. This was a kind of like a bit of a strange episode because I know it's like let's get the big thing out. Obviously, having Liana show up at the end in the last 2 minutes is what everyone's talking about, and everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, it was the best episode of." I was like, well, actually, if I take that bit out, the rest of the episode is a much more slow paced. I preferred last week's episode, which was a bit more action packed. I enjoy, we kind of went back to just a lot of talking, a lot more development between them. I enjoyed the whole thing of them getting a bit drunk after, just relaxing and learning a little bit about each other, but also more about like Clint kind of realizing that and especially, I mean, the whole flashbacks to, Black Widow, what was going on, but they really harpened on about the idea of, of him struggling with her death and not wanting her, and the parallels in what they were doing and how they dropped her off the cliff. And it was a really good episode. I'm not going to lie and say I really enjoyed it. But if you take away the ending we knew was coming, I think it wasn't the best episode of the series so far. What about you?
So, I mean, it depends on what you're going in for. If you're going in for the action episode, definitely, because it's only the last couple. Now, that said, I thought it was a really good action sequence. They had a really good fight going there with the 3-way between different factions kind of thing. Maya's involved with it. And I thought that was a really good fight. But yes, it's only the last couple of minutes. But I did really like this episode. It's the kind of episode that we needed You need to slow things down a little bit because if it's all pure action, you get overloaded. We've seen that plenty of times with these movies. But like you said, getting to know these characters, the characters getting to know each other, a very just kind of chill Christmas where they're just doing their thing. I was a little disappointed that the cliffhanger from last episode just was like, oh, you're Clint Barton. Oh, sorry, let me take the sword out of your face. And that was the end of it. It's kind of like, that's a anticlimax right there. But it led into a good scene with them talking and kind of figuring out where everybody is in relation to each other. This is the kind of scene that we needed in like the Black Widow movie.
Yeah. And also as well, this is the advantage of the Disney Plus series where the pace slows down a bit, lets everyone expand out the characters. We get a little bit more like nuance between everyone, find out what's going on. You don't get that in a movie because it's going to move so quick. And this is like you say, like again, they're going to get that little bit more time with the characters. That there would have been like a montage if this was or a little scene. I think we're definitely seeing a nice. I'm really enjoying it. But there are certain scenes you knew if this was a movie, you just wouldn't have got like Hawkeye and Kaz in the car. That wouldn't have happened because they didn't need it. I still kind of at this thing of like I would like to know what this watch does. Them just running around after this thing of like going, I've not really. I mean, is it the one that Spider-Man had? It's like I don't know. It's very, very tricky of what I'd like a little bit more explanation. We're going into we got 2 episodes left. We got one more big reveal to go. I'd like a little bit more. Well, I mean, the fact that Kevin Feige at the beginning of the week pretty much said, "Oh yeah, Charlie Cox is in our MCU Daredevil." Okay, you just might happen to drop that in just before Spider-Man and Kingpin next week. Yeah. That reminds me. Actually, on Wednesday, it's literally going to be Hawkeye. Finish Hawkeye, get in the car, and drive to the cinema. So that's
it'll be a big day, particularly if Daredevil and/or Kingpin show up in either of these.
Yeah.
We'll cover that next week.
Yeah.
But that did remind me. There's something I've been meaning to point out the last several weeks and then keep forgetting to. We have that really good scene with Clint and his wife on the phone. And I've really appreciated how this series has had them just be, completely chill with it. Because, the superhero trope is, of course, you've got to hide everything about your life from your family and your loved ones and make sure that they are safe. And these two really are a team. And even the kids are generally understanding, like, oh, Daddy is not going to be here for Christmas, but we get it. He's an Avenger. We're disappointed, but he's obviously doing something important. And having that open line of communication between them is so refreshing in a superhero story. I'm also just really glad that
it's also really interesting as well. I feel like of how much they are, I would say, empowering women in this series. Because he's reliant on everyone kind of helping him. He's fighting. Yeah, I don't know. It was one of those. I think obviously with the triple threat kind of female fight at the end was like in it, but I'm like, wow, he's really kind of like, this is a great story, and it's just a really great thing because I really enjoy Kate Bishop. Her character's, I'm liking her being kind of has that Spider-Man Tom Holland feel where there's a little bit of youth, a little bit more optimism, a little bit more realism, like not quite there. And I don't know, just and like the thing of like she just catches the lift up, and like. And like in the elevator, just kind of go, "Hey, I'm working with an Avenger here," and she's excited, and I like because it's real. It makes it feel more real than being, souped up.
I mean, the one I would compare it to is obviously Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Even though that had plenty of comedy in it, it was more of like the buddy comedy, the conflict between the two characters. It's still a very much more serious show. Like the content was more serious. The threat was much more serious and high level. Whereas so far the threat in this is literally just like some Russians are going to beat up Kate because they think that she's Ronin, and that is the threat level until Yelena shows up.
I think Maya would kill him. I think that's generally the
But that it's not. There's a terrorist organization that's going to try to destroy this giant monuments or take over the world, or it's literally just let's get Kate safe and get people not associating Ronin with her so they don't try to kill her.
The only thing that could be interesting with this one is I'm wondering, obviously, if they bring in Kingpin, as we expect them to, whether or not that might set up a lot of the new shows. It's going to set up, obviously, Echo, whether or not it links in with, like, She-Hulk and Miss Marvel, or whether or not that he is the ultimate villain, because Tom Holland's been talking about it. It's just been ramping up this week. Maybe he's like I don't know. There's a lot of fun stuff going on, but this one is a lot more grounded, and I'm liking that. I'm definitely enjoying this much more realistic version of Marvel. Back to basics, back to we're not facing it, and I'm really enjoying that about this series.
I mean, we loved the spectacle of Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki, and then Wanda being just completely different, just out there, but. It's nice to have this street level one. The action is generally really good. The actors are doing some good stuff. We get these great little character moments. Heck, even Kate just going and having her own scene with the LARPers. And okay, we know that she's going to get her costume out of it, and Clint's going to get his updated costume out of it. Somehow, despite the fact that it'll be like the next day, and I don't think leather working can generally go that fast.
Let's be honest, we don't need to worry about the technicalities. You know, they had an arrow that made it into a massive, great big arrow that blew up a bus.
I know. There are different hills to die on than that one. I'm enjoying it. It's definitely that kind of, you know, like, and we had this with all of the series where you have that episode, you know, it has to dip a little bit to get back going up again. You know, they're going to set the tone, set the scale. I just feel like there was I wish there was a little bit more. I mean, obviously they're bringing in the end, but they've already like released a couple of clips and stuff, you know, and her with, and it's like, you know, obviously they're gonna have to talk at some point, and then we know what, you know, they kind of align themselves and stuff. But I'm just a great episode. Can't wait to watch it this week. It's gonna be fun this week. I'm just realizing I've got a really fun Wednesday morning, so I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be a good Marvel week. So I've got one question for you. What are your thoughts on Kate's mother? Because we got a couple scenes with her this week too.
Well, she phoned somebody up. My gut reaction is that she's probably on a little bit of the take. I think she might be like, maybe Kingpin employs their company for their security. It might not be necessarily that she's evil, but she's taking money. I think she's taking money from Kingpin or providing some. And then obviously, it's the fact that she phones somebody, and then obviously the swordsman he's, you know, I'm half expecting him to come out with his Zorro mask at some point. But I don't even know how they can get him up to being, because he's been like the last 3 episodes has been so, and he was, you know, he's been nice. I mean, it feels like he's a character they needed to leave for later. They need to leave him rather than, because I mean, we still really got like nothing about Maya. We've got the Yena now. We've got the King. It just feels like he's going to get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what they do with him, and especially since Clint stole the sword back in this episode, they're obviously going to bring him back for something, because he's going to want to get that, even though it should have been Clint's in the first place. I'm very curious to see where they're going to go, because they really can go either direction with him, where they can go, you know, this is all a red herring. They've been harping up, he's the bad guy, he's a bad guy, he's a bad guy, so hard that you're kind of like, oh, well, is he actually the bad guy? We'll see, because I'd like them
to hold off for when, if they do a Kate show of her own, which, you know, could very likely to be, he becomes, you know, establish that and lean into it and kind of give that a bit more time to grow. Because obviously she's not really connected to him as a stepfather. She's not, you know, she's starting to, and that's what I'm liking. You know, them like having a little bit more of like, you know, like watching them dance and stuff. And you can see them, this is awful, but actually it's quite, you know,
that scene was a bit awkward, intentionally, but it is definitely like, you don't really want to see your parents, even, or a parent and a step parent being like all lovey-dovey like that. It's uncomfortable.
But it's also like she's completely like, you know, about the guy that died, you know, with the wherever's original kind of toffee kind of thing, and like that's all seemed to have just been forgotten. I don't know. It's just it feels sometimes like I don't know quite where we're going.
Yeah,
I at least felt like with like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you knew where we were going. You knew what you were, you know, and like Loki was building up this big bad, and they had the reveal, and they're kind of doing that with Hawkeye, but it's not this. I think the trouble is Hawkeye speaking. We know who it's going to be, so
we have a very good idea of who it's going to be.
Yeah,
I think if there's a problem with Hawkeye right now, it is juggling a few too many storylines. You mentioned the Watch. Obviously, there was a very quick view of it in the first episode during the auction scene, and then we just forgot about it for 4 episodes. So when we got to it this week, I was literally like, "Oh, right, the Watch." Wait, what Watch? You know, that was kind of like came out of nowhere, and like you said, there's other little subplots that were mentioned and then not mentioned for a couple episodes, and now they're just kind of coming back, and it does feel like it might be juggling a little too much. And of course, you're throwing Yelena on top of that, you're throwing some other potential characters on top of that. We might get to the end of this and go, we really needed another episode to kind of tie everything up, or at least set up Young Avengers or a Kate spinoff, or heck, even a Swordsman spinoff or something like that. But depending what direction they go with the mom, because I've got the same general impression. That's why I asked about it. Is she's not evil, but there's definitely things she doesn't want revealed. That whole scene with her and Clint by the elevator was like red flags for miles.
Well, like, I don't know. See, that had that same thing of like, this is just a concerned parent. So I mean, there was a threat in there, but there wasn't a threat. And I don't know. I kind of, at least you could kind of go, that was, but then like, it's like this whole thing about like Blackwood's like, well, how does everybody know? Because no one knows how she died.
Right.
It's the same thing as well. Like, everyone knows she's gone, but no one maybe knows why I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. And obviously we're going to find out how, Yena's going to find out all this out because she's bound to team up. We're going to have that team up. I can't see them not resolving that by the end of the series.
It does also seem that people don't know Clint was there when she died. When Natasha died. It does seem like the way they talk about Natasha to her doesn't seem like they recognize how traumatic an event that was for him because he was there and saw it happen. I might be reading too much into that, and it might just be people being completely insensitive and not realizing the sensitivity of the topic.
But then it's like that kind of weird thing of like, how on earth would like the Avengers like explain how they went back in time and went to a parallel universe for a soul place and to collect us? They had to give a soul to get from It's like they ain't gonna know all of that.
I would presume everyone just they would tell none of that. I'm sure they came up with their own story of what happened that's close enough to the truth, but I definitely would not be advertising it. We've got a working time travel machine. That's not gonna. That would not be a good idea.
No, definitely interesting. So obviously next week we'll be talking about that one. We'll be talking about Spider-Man. Also next week we've got Ron's Gone Wrong. Will be another movie dropping on Wednesday, so it's gonna be a busy day. But I'm not watching that on Wednesday, I don't think. So that'll be another. We got Fantastic as well on Wednesday. So another high. Yeah, that's so far down my list to watch.
That's definitely like
I might watch it like Friday, but so there's not very high on my list of things to watch. I realize, like, if you've been hearing a slow rumbling, slowly getting louder through the whole episode, it was my bulldog that's underneath my feet just getting more and more sleepy and just snoring away.
She is a snorer.
She is a full snorer.
We have one of my teammates has a dog, and when they're doing their daily updates, you can definitely hear that just like snore going back. And I've definitely gotten messages from people who sit in on the meeting, and it's their first time. It's like, what is that sound?
I took her out to the beach before we recorded to kind of tire her out a bit, but I think I tired her out a little bit too much. But there we go. So that is this week's episode. We'll be back next week with another one. The one after that is the Christmas episode. We'll be a few days earlier than normal. That's how we're going to be doing it. But we're not missing any episodes over the holidays and stuff. So we'll be back next week with another episode. As I said, go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe on the different platforms. Support us as well. Go vote in the 2021 Best of Awards. We want all of your opinions in there. And we shall see you guys soon. Later. I'd like to thank all of our Patreon and YouTube channel members for their support. You can become a member from as little as $2 a month and you get access to our weekly Q&A and much more.